Fine. Okay, students, we'll start. Today we discussed about waterfall model and increment model. You tell me, what are the takeaways from waterfall model? Anyone? Akrut? What you learned from waterfall model? Hello? Akrut? Huma? Huma, are you there? Hello? Benakraj? Benakraj? Students, tell me what you learned from waterfall model. What kind of model it is? It's a plan-based model or agile model? It's a plan-based model. You have to plan all the requirements to be implemented at once, and plan remains almost fixed. Then you can start all the processes one after the other in the sequence, and you can finish off the project. So that's what waterfall model. And before finishing any one particular process, you are not supposed to start the very next process. So that's the drawback of waterfall model. And to overcome that, we used incremental model. We studied incremental model. When you go with incremental model, you can plan both. You can go with both plan-based processes as well as agile processes. So both are possible. Then let us see integration and configuration. Based on software use, where systems are integrated from existing components or application systems. Sometimes they are also called as COTS. COTS means commercially off-the-shelf systems. Remember this terminology, COTS, commercially off-the-shelf systems. Many times that's been asked in the examination. I explain COTS systems with example. See here, you are going to develop one complex system. To develop that complex system, instead of developing all the systems starting from the scratch, you'll be identifying the components that are already available. So sometimes all the components will be available. Then you just integrate them and you do some configuration and you make it a complete system. And so in some cases, what happens, many of the components will be already available and a few of them should be developed for the first time. So that has to be done. Then integration should be done. Reused elements may be configured to adapt their behavior and functionality to users' requirements. That means whenever you find any component that is reusable, then you have to adapt their behavior and functionality to meet the user requirements. So you need to configure it such that its behavior will meet the user's expectations. Reuse is now the standard approach for building many types of business applications. So reuse, that will be covered in chapter 15. That is reuse oriented software engineering. So that is in chapter 15. Then let us see what are the different types of reusable software. Standalone application systems, sometimes called as COTS, that is commercially off-the-shelf systems, which are standalone application systems that are configured for user in a particular environment. That means when I say a component is reusable, so some components, say for example, maybe targeting Macintosh systems, and some software components may be targeting Linux-based systems, and some components may be targeting exactly the Windows-based operating systems, and so on. Collections of objects that are developed as a package to be integrated with a new component framework such as .NET or J2EE. Okay, this is just an example. So many times, so they'll be developing packages, reusable packages in Java. Hello students, have you used Java? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So why we create packages there?
To import built-in classes, sir.
Yeah, and that code can be reused, isn't it? So in whichever the class you want to reuse the code, you can just import the package. So actually that promotes code reusability. That is one of the thing. So collection of objects that are developed as a package to be integrated with component frameworks such as .NET and J2EE. In C and C++, we call them as header files, which promotes code reusability, isn't it? So once you create an header file, user-defined header file, then you can include those header files in whichever the program you want. Similarly, the packages in J2EE or Java. Then another example for reusable code is web services. For example, Google Maps is a public web service which is available and that can be integrated with any of your applications. Say, for example, you're developing one mobile application or one cloud-based application, and you want GPS or Google Maps to be used for that, then for navigation purpose, then you can use that publicly available web service, that is Google Maps. It's a publicly available web service, and that is available as an API that you can use, that you can link with your application. So web services that are developed according to service standards and which are available for remote invocation. So that's also one more example. So most of the web services, say there are so many web services which are available for remote invocation. Say for example, Google Docs. So what is Google Docs? That is one of the service provided by Google App Engine. Google App Engine is a cloud platform which provides Google Docs. Not only Google Docs, Google Classroom, Gmail, all these are the services of freely available services of Google. They are available as web services. That means by using the web interface, we can access them. Say for example, your friend has sent one email to you, and it's a Microsoft Excel document, and you don't have MS Office with you. That means you cannot view it. So therefore, you can view it by using Google Docs. What is Google Docs? Hello students, what is Google Docs? Hello? 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 Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tell me what is Google Docs?
So to store documents in cloud.
It is not used to store documents on cloud. Google Docs is used to, yeah, you can, of course, you can create also, but mainly, so when you don't have an appropriate software to view our document,
It's
so
an
most of the times
online
we
word processor.
use, yeah, actually that is available as software as a service. See, in cloud, we have three types of services: software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. So this is an web service actually, which is available as software as a service. So using Google Docs, we can view our documents, and online we can create documents, and we can store it in cloud. Okay, we can also create documents using Google Docs, and we can store them in cloud, isn't it? So that is an example for web service. Google Docs is an example for web service. Gmail is an example for web service. Google Classroom, GCR, that's an example for web service. And Google Drive, that's the storage facility, isn't it? Storage means it comes under infrastructure, that is infrastructure as a service. Okay, these are all examples for reusable software. And it supports for remote invocation, that is very important. That supports for remote invocation. Okay, now let us see the diagram which shows reuse-oriented software engineering. First, we have requirement specification. With requirement specification, we can do two things. One is, see here, The objective of this reuse oriented software engineering means, say for example, someone admitted. Students, you have to join at the right time. At least by 8:35 you have to join, not whenever you want. So let us assume you are going to implement one project. So before implementing the project, say for example, you are working for a company, and let us assume you are the project manager, and you are assigned with a new project, and you know that, so in that if to implement that project, many of the components are already available in your own organization, because already your company has executed such similar projects. Therefore, there is a lot of code available which can be reused. So once you come up with the requirement specification, that is, once you have the SRS document with you, then you can discover the software. That means software discovery, it's a process which involves cross-checking whether you have any software which is reusable for this project. So that is called software discovery. And once you find, yes, there is some component which can be reused for this project, then you should do the software evaluation. So whether it can be reused or not. So if at all you want to reuse it, whether it requires any minimal changes or not. So that is called software evaluation here. So these two are mandatory steps that you have to do if at all you want to reuse the software. Then requirements refinement. Then so you should tick mark, isn't it? Yes, this component is found. Okay, so to implement this particular functionality, I found the software. So that you need to update in the SRS document, that is requirement specification. Then you search for the remaining components. What other components are there in our company, in company's repository, so that I can reuse the software core. So which will greatly save the developer's time. So like that, a minute. So like that, you should keep checking all the requirements. You should check all the requirements one after the other, whether the source code for this functionality is already available or not. So once you are done with that, okay, then requirements refinement is over. Then, so this is a conditional statement. You can see here this rhombus, this is an conditional statement. So components available. Okay, if all the components are available, then configure application system. That means if all the components required for the entire project are available in your company, then your task is to just to configure the application. Okay, so already here you have checked, okay, whether you have identified all the components and you have configured them. Then just here you need to assemble and do the final configuration, so that the application software is ready. Otherwise, if all the components are not available, means very few components are available, then develop new components. Okay, for whichever the functionality there is no source code available, so then the organization should develop such components, then adopt the components with the components which are already available, then integrate the complete system. This entire process is called as reuse oriented software engineering. So it's all about first fetching the requirements, then checking. So for whichever the functionality, the code is already available. Okay, you just identify those pieces of software and evaluate them. Okay, then you identify which are all the components that are to be developed for the first time. Okay, that has to be developed, then integrated to make it one complete system. So in very rare cases, you will get 100% all the components which can be reused. Okay, if that is the case, you can just configure the application system that is here. See, reuse, software reuse is a trend, current trend, because it is not so easy to develop everything starting from the scratch, and that is the useless work. Because as a company, as it keeps developing so many projects, so it will be having its own internal repository wherein they will be storing one copy of the code. As and when they get the similar type of projects, they'll try to explore those that repository to identify the code that can be reused, which will greatly save the developers time and budget. That is very important. It will save the budget and it will help the company to deliver the working software within time. Key process stages: requirement specification, software discovery and evaluation, requirements refinement, application system configuration, component adaptation and integration. So requirement specification, that is documenting the requirements. Then software discovery and evaluation, that is very important process here. The second process is very, very important. That is to identify reusable software within the organization and to evaluate it, how it can be used. Okay, whether it can be used without any modification or whether you need to do some modification or configuration. So that is called evaluation. Third step is requirements refinement. So once you identify that certain components are available, then you have to mark it down. That means you have to segregate. So which are the requirements that we found and which are the requirements that have to be implemented for the first time. In case if everything is found, application system configuration, you can just configure the system if everything is found, or else component adaptation and integration. That means you identify which are the components that are to be developed for the first time and that are to be developed and adapted as per users requirement. Then the final integration of the system should be done. These are the key process stages. There are 5 key process stages, as you can see in this diagram. First stage, second stage, third stage, and this is the fourth stage. So fourth stage is optional. Fourth stage will come into the picture when you get all the components that can be reused, or else directly will go to the last stage, that is stage 5, adopt and integrate. Advantages and disadvantages. Reduced costs and risks as less software is developed from scratch. So as you are reusing the software components, it will greatly reduce the cost and the risks are reduced, and less software is developed from the scratch. So instead of developing everything from the scratch, very less software will be developed from the scratch. Then it helps faster delivery and deployment of the system. It helps for faster delivery and deployment of the system, so that you can work out the budget, and that's the main thing. And you can deliver the product in time, which will be appreciated by your client. But requirements compromises are inevitable. So system may not meet real needs of users. See, sometimes what happens, the developer, what they do, sometimes they may have to tweak little bit so that the software will fit exactly to the user's requirements. Sometimes if they show any negligency and they'll if they do not tweak, say for example, let us assume, so it is meeting some 90% needs of the user. That means to meet another 10%, they may have to do some little bit modification to the existing code. So if that is not done by the developers, then it may not meet the real needs of the users. That is one drawback. Usually such things will be taken care and such flaws will be identified during testing. Okay, in case if those things are not identified during testing, then that becomes a problem where it may not meet real needs of the users. So in that sense, the developer should be very careful, and even the testers have to be very careful, because their duty is to identify the flaws or bugs within the software system, and the tester should ensure that the software meets 100% requirements of the user. Then the last point is loss of control over evolution of reused system elements. Loss of control over evolution of reused system elements. Say for example, you have, so one developer had written one user defined function for one project. Now that is reused. By doing minimal changes, now this new version will be updated into the repository for future purpose. So that means the code is getting evolved. So for that they are telling loss of control over evolution of user system elements. It's okay, that is okay. Okay, so nothing happens. So nothing happens if you do a little bit modification to the existing code and you are adding that code once again into the repository for future reference. Okay, that is advantage only. Okay, not an issue. Students, anything you want to ask? Hello? Hello? I'll continue. Process activities. Next is process activities. Real software processes are interleaved sequence of technical, collaborative, and managerial activities with the overall goal of specifying, designing, implementing, and testing a software system. See here, in this point, the author is telling that the software processes are interleaved sequence of technical, collaborative, and managerial activities. Yes, it includes technical aspects. It includes aspects which needs collaboration. So see here why it requires collaboration. Say for example, whenever you develop any project, you have to follow certain standards. And for many times, even the organizations will be doing collaboration with some other companies. Say for example, you may have seen that so many companies will be mentioning that Microsoft partner, Google partner, like that. Why they mention like that? Because those companies, big companies, will be outsourcing some of the specialized activities to these smaller companies. So hence, many times we cannot expect that, okay, to whichever the company you have given the contract to develop the software has done 100% work. And in some cases, what happens? The development will be done, and for the testing purpose, they'll be outsourcing the job to some other third-party company. So to do that collaborative work. Why? Because always, so in testing, there are two types of testing, alpha testing and beta testing. Alpha testing is done by the developers in-house, and to do the beta testing will be done before the software release. That will be outsourced. Why? Because always others can identify our errors in a better way than ourselves. So with that logic, beta testing will be outsourced. So therefore, that is where collaboration will come into the picture. Collaboration with other companies, and at the same time, collaboration within the company with different teams is very much essential. Okay, there will be one team who will be specialized in or who will be doing the specification work, and there will be a team who will be doing design work, and there will be a team of developers, and there will be a team of testers. So the collaboration has to be done. And managerial activities. So managerial activities is all about taking the problem, dividing it into pieces, and assigning it to individuals, then monitoring the progress, then updating the same thing to the client. So that's an example of managerial work with the goal of specifying, that means documenting the requirements, designing, preparing the overall design of the project using suitable diagrams, which will give details about what is to be developed and how the flow of the project should be. Then implementing means writing the source code and implementing the logic, and testing a software. So these are all the software process activities, that is specification, design, implementation, and testing, okay, which also includes evaluation. The four basic process activities of specification, development, validation, and evaluation. The validation means testing, and evaluation means the maintenance part. As part of maintenance, you should also re-implement or implement the modifications. So that is, when you implement modifications, we call it as evaluation. So these are organized differently in different development processes. So activities are this much only. So specification, development, validation, and evolution. So these are the activities, and in different models, these things will be organized in a different way. Okay, for example, in waterfall model, they are organized in sequence, whereas in incremental development, they are interleaved. Okay, that means interleaved means in incremental development, these things can be done in parallel. That's why I call them interleaved. Whereas in waterfall model, these process activities will be done in sequence. There, these activities are not interleaved, because there you will be doing in sequence, one process after the another process. Okay, this diagram is very important, students. Keep in your mind. See, if you want to clear software engineering process, then you need to learn so many diagrams. So that is the strength. So if you can write so many diagrams, you will clear the subject. If you cannot write, you will not clear the subject. That is very much clear. Because here everything is a process. When I say software engineering, everything is a process activity. And to depict those process activities, we have so many diagrams. So keep in your mind, you have to learn diagrams. You have to practice, and practice. Okay, and you cannot mug up. Okay, once again, I am telling you, you cannot mug up the diagrams. You should have the understanding of the process. Once you have the understanding of the process, then you can remember the diagram. Requirements engineering process. Okay, the very first phase is requirements elicitation and analysis. So here first we need to understand what is the meaning of requirements elicitation. So requirements elicitation means we need to have understanding about what is the expectation from the user, how we need to develop. So that is called elicitation. So that means we should be able to think from client perspective, client or the end user perspective. Say for example, you're developing one web application, then you need to think in what way the end users will be using it. How should I make it user friendly? Okay, so that thought process is called as requirements elicitation and analysis. So now as part of this requirements elicitation, you should think, so in what way I should implement so that it will be easy for the user to use. Then you have to document that requirement. That is called requirements elicitation and analysis. So the outcome of that process is called as system descriptions. So system description will tell you, okay, what are all the requirements to be implemented and how they have to be implemented. So that is system description. Then second phase, requirement specification. So here, so you have just abstractly noted down in requirements elicitation, you have abstractly noted down so what the client requires. Now you document it. When you document it as part of user requirements, system requirements, domain requirements, and so on, that becomes complete SRS. Okay, the outcome of this requirement specification is user and system requirements. The outcome of SRS is you will come to know what are the user requirements and what are the system requirements. System means the entire project is called as a system. So what are the requirements of the system? Then third phase is requirements validation. Requirements validation. So what is requirements validation? So once you talk to the customer or the client, then you'll come to know whether the SRS document prepared by our team contains 100% all the requirements or not. In case if anything is left out, that is to be added. So that's why you are having the feedback arrow. You can see here, you are having the feedback arrow from requirements validation to the previous stage. Similarly, from requirement specification to requirements elicitation and analysis. So if anything is left out, that can be added. Then after requirements validation, the final thing is requirements document. So therefore the requirement documents contain system descriptions plus user and system requirements. Okay, so it contains two things, system descriptions and user and system requirements. See, system descriptions is very abstract in nature. It will give you abstract information about what the customer wants. Say for example, I'll give you example for system description. Say your client will tell you, I want to launch one new business and I want to do business using online mode. So I'm having these are the categories of products available with me and I want to market these things and I want to sell it online. Okay, now you'll come to know that. So you are going to showcase the product along with product specification and the price related details and some information about what are the possible payment options. Okay, so then the end user can view the component or the product and they can purchase. Okay, so that is requirement. So that's why, okay, that is how the end user wants to use. Then when you want to convert those things into requirement, okay, so that becomes requirement specification. See here, in case of requirements elicitation, you write system descriptions. It is just like points. You'll be writing one point after the another point. Say for example, first very requirement. So selling of products using online platform. Second point, each product contains description and the description of the product and the price tag. Okay, third description. So there should be 1 or 2 payment options so that the customer can book the product. Okay, like that. You will be writing the system descriptions one after the other. So now each description, each point can be converted into 1 or more requirements. That is requirement specification. Okay, once you read the system descriptions, then you can prepare requirement specification. So while preparing requirement specification, if you get an idea, so something is to be added to system description, that you can give as a feedback. Okay, that's why this arrow is going back to requirements elicitation and analysis. Then once you are done with system requirement specification, the end product of that process, see this is called, see you can see these symbols. These symbols, oval symbols are all processes and these square box are all, these rectangles represent end product of each process. That is user and system requirements. So once user and system requirements are prepared, the next stage is requirements validation. So validation means, yes, whether this requirement is there or not, you validate. Okay, simply say if you develop some functionality which is actually not required for your client, then that is nothing but waste of time and money. See, simply the developer has developed, he wasted the time and money, and simply your team lead was monitoring and simply another guy did the testing part. Isn't it? Everything is waste of time and money. So that is requirements validation. To validate whether this requirement is there or not. And if at all anything is missing, okay, that has to be intimated. Accordingly, the changes will be done to all the necessary documents. So once you are done with requirements validation, then you will get the complete requirements document. We call it as system requirements document. Software specification, the process of establishing what services are required and the constraints on the system's operation and development. That is called software specification. Okay, if you ask, okay, if anybody asks you what is software specification, or if you get a question, so here is the answer. It is the process of establishing what services are required and what are all the constraints. That means under what constraints the system has to work. Okay, that is very important. And the constraints on the system's operation and development. So that then it becomes software specification. Requirements engineering process. Okay, we have discussed this, which contains requirements elicitation and analysis, requirement specification, and validation. Okay, now we'll move to software design and implementation. See, students, when we say design, actually there are two phases in design. One is abstract design and another one is in detailed design. So abstract design example, architecture diagram, 0 level DFD or level 1 DFD, which will give you some information about so what is this project is all about and what are the major subsystems that the project contains. So it will not give you in detail like how it is to be implemented. To depict how it is to be implemented, we have to go for detailed design. As part of detailed design, we draw flowcharts, data flow diagrams, then sequence diagrams, then use case diagrams, and so on to show the detailed design of the system. Software design is very much essential, and one of the very important thing that you need to understand. So what is the basis for designing the software? That is SRS document, that is the requirements document. By keeping requirements document as the basis, we develop the system design. Once we develop the system design, we do once again the validation of the design. See, validation is not, see students, validation means it's just like a testing. It is testing only. So you should not think that testing should be done only for the source code. It is not like that. Validation should be done for requirements document also, to see that you have documented all the requirements and all the requirements are the valid requirements. Then once you come up with the design, you should validate the design, whether the design is proper or not, whether design is implementable or not, and whether the design is consistent with the SRS document or not. So that is also validation. Then once you develop the software, then you will check for its correctness. That is also validation only. That is also validation. That means you cannot say that validation is applicable only for the source code. Therefore, the validation is applicable for SRS document, then system design, and also the source code. So that you need to understand. The process of converting the system specification into an executable system. Software design and implementation is nothing but is the process of converting specification to an executable system. Then what is software design? Design a software structure that realizes the specification. Okay, look at here. This statement, design a software design means designing a software structure. Structure of the software means the diagrams that realizes the specification. That means what are the requirements that you have documented that has to be converted into the design. Okay, that means your design should be consistent with the SRS document. That's the meaning. Then implementation. Translate this structure into an executable program. So you have the software design here. So translate that design into executable program. That is what the source code. So first you have documented the requirements. You are calling it as requirements document. Then after that, based on the requirements documents, you have designed certain diagrams. Those diagrams will tell you, so what is the structure of the software and what is to be developed and how it is to be developed. Then translate the design into source code. Then based upon that design, you start writing the source code. That is implementation. Then finally, testing. The activities of design and implementation are closely related and may be interleaved. Say for example, if something cannot be, say for example, already you have done the design and the developers have started developing the system. Then at some point of time, if they feel that something cannot be integrated or something cannot be developed, that means then accordingly, so you should have some alternate approach, isn't it? As a result of that, you may have to change the design. You may have to change the design to meet the requirements. That is also one possibility. Okay, now let us see the general model of design process. For design, we need inputs, isn't it? So design means what to design. So for proper inputs should be given. So those inputs come from platform related information. That means, say for example, you are going to implement this project using J2EE platform or using .NET platform. So accordingly, you should do the design, isn't it? Then you should know the requirement specification, then data description. That means, so if at all you design the software, what kind of data will be dealt by this project? Okay, with that knowledge, you can start the design activity. Okay, that means before going for the design, you should know in which platform this project is going to be implemented. Then you should have the complete understanding, 100% understanding of requirements document, then data description. So what kind of data will be dealt by this, so that you can design appropriate components here. Then the design activity starts with architectural diagram. Okay, always keep in your mind, the very first design is architectural design. Architecture design is one thing which contains the subsystems and its interaction. Then interface design. So interface design, so which also includes graphical user interface design and also mockups. So mockups is one of the design document. Students, you can Google mockups and graphical user interfaces. Then component design. Say component design means, say for example, designing each individual modules and rating what are the functionalities and showcasing what are the functionalities under each individual component. So first we do with architectural design, then we design the interfaces. After designing the interfaces, we design individual components. Then parallelly, so after architecture design or after component design, we can start database design. So how will we start database design? We will not straight away start creating the tables. No, that is not the way we have to do. First, you have to build the entity relationship diagram. ER diagram is one thing using which we can do the data modeling. If anybody asks you how to do data modeling, so the best approach is ER diagram. Once you draw the ER diagram, then you will come to know, okay, what are the major entities required. All the entities will be converted into tables, and the attributes of the entities will become the columns of the table, isn't it? Okay, then in what way one table is depending upon another table, that idea you will get from the ER diagram. Then suitably you can build relations between the tables, relations and suitable dependencies. Then what are all the design outputs? So each stage will be having some output. We call them as deliverables. So for example, after software specification. The deliverable is requirements document. Then comes the next stage, design. After system design, the end product is system design document, which contains all these things. Which contains the design document contains system architecture, database specification, interface specification, and component specification. These are all the outputs of design phase. Hello, students, is it clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yeah, we'll stop it here. So the takeaway from this today's class is that, see, when it comes to process models, let it be any process model, the common process activities are specification, design, implementation, and evolution. These are the common process activities. Then, irrespective of any stage of software development, each stage is having certain deliverable. In specification, we have requirements documentation as the deliverable, and in design phase, we have design document as the deliverable. In coding part, that is implementation, source code is the deliverable. In testing phase, test report is the deliverable, isn't it? So these are all the deliverables. That is the final takeaway. We'll continue in the next class. Start answering your attendance. USN 1,
Yes, sir.
2,
Yes, sir.
3,
Yes, sir.